He's with Fox and Friends on the weekends. By the way, and his book is up at DennisPrager.com. I'm thrilled to endorse it. In fact, my endorsement is on the jacket. American Crusade, Our Fight to Stay Free. Pete Hegseth. Pete, what is your work during the week?
Good question. It usually is, prior to this COVID-19 moment, traveling across the country. We do these diner segments on Fox and Friends in the morning where we talk to regular folks, the forgotten men and women, and for breakfast, and we allow them to share common sense wisdom. So I'm traveling across the country doing that. I go to rallies for the president, and then I do a lot of work for Fox Nation, which is our streaming service, and I've done 3 documentaries about Israel, about Jerusalem, about temple denial, about the settlements and the truth there, about Bethlehem, birthplace of Jesus, which is under siege. So I get a chance to take on a lot of special projects. I stay busy. I can't just work on the weekends.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked, and you do great work. So a couple of other items that have been in the news that I'd like to bounce off you. Are you aware of the NFL proposal with regard to hiring black coaches?
I'm aware of it traditionally. I don't know if there's been a new development.
Yeah, so the new development, and I'll ask my producer if I got it right, is that it's not been enacted, but there's a plan going around that you will have a higher draft pick. Your team will go up in the draft pick if you have a black coach.
I want to say that can't be true, but of course I believe it, Dennis, it's the full manifestation of the woke corporate culture. They are completely incentivized to go to the furthest identity politics level they can because the virtue signaling gives them the warm glow they want from their leftist friends in the media, and they pay no consequence. It's racism is what it is. But they certainly think of it as the opposite.
Well, it's racism in a less obvious way, because then any black coach will be perceived as less competent and only there because of the team's desire to have a higher draft pick.
Yes.
It's demeaning to blacks.
Well, it's just like affirmative action and classmates I went to school with who were constantly beating back the assumption that they were not there for their own merits.
That's
and it frustrated a lot of them.
So what's the way out of this?
The way out of this, as I see it, written in the book, is the utter defeat, the crushing of the left. And that's why I didn't write the American debate or American civics or even American battle. This is an American crusade. It is a holy war for the righteous cause of freedom. You have to understand where our freedoms come from God, not from government. You have to understand our history, not just in America, but our Judeo-Christian history, the West, Israel. You have to really know the roots of how we came to be, Athens and Jerusalem. And when you understand that, you understand how precious what we have is, and then how deeply wrong and evil leftist ideology always has been and now is manifesting itself in America. They're not just mere domestic political opponents anymore. These are the enemies of freedom who want to take us in the direction of every failed collectivist leftist experiment the globe has ever seen in the ash bin of history, all the while as we face probably the biggest geopolitical challenge we've ever faced in a rising and ambitious communist China. So we have an enemy within, an enemy without, and I think we have to take a cue from our president, who has been the brash, bold, politically incorrect, bomb thrower, exposer of the media that conservatives used to sort of be delicate with, right? We can't talk about that way. Well, I talk about growing a Trump spine and him being the see something, say something president, and the conversion moments many of us had. I had my second chapter starts with the words, "Hi, my name is Pete Hegseth, and I was almost a never Trumper." A lot of us were in a fixed prism of the world before this moment, and Donald Trump and this movement has helped expose how far gone we are on the left and how much we must do to recapture it.
I'm going to ask you a question which you'll find bizarre, but it's actually a compliment. Did you go to college? I'll tell you why I asked. I'll tell you why I asked. The number of college graduates who would say Athens and Jerusalem is very, very small.
Because, Dennis, I didn't learn it in college. I learned it from a book written by Jeffrey Hart, a Dartmouth professor, called Smiling Through the Cultural Catastrophe, which was a once-over the world on Western civilization. I had to unlearn everything I learned at Princeton University. In fact, I write in the book how at some point, especially at Harvard, I got a master's degree at the Kennedy School. I'm going to give back the degree. I'm going to literally open the degree up,
no kidding.
Return to sender, and mail it back. It does more harm than good.
Was I right about Athens and Jerusalem?
100%. Not even if anything, Athens and Jerusalem are part in academia today are considered part of the white patriarchy.
Of course, exactly. You know? Or even know what it means. I don't believe that to take the two universities you attended, I do not believe that the average senior at Princeton knows what it means when we say Athens and Jerusalem. He will think it means a travel itinerary on a cruise ship.
No chance. The only chance they have is if they intentionally sought out Robbie George to take a certain set of classes where maybe they learned that. He's the one conservative
right. Yes.
there in the James Madison program. But otherwise, not only have they not taught that, they're taught to reject it. And that's why in the solution chapter, Dennis, you'll appreciate this, chapter 13, I believe it is, I talk about what are the front lines, and the front lines are education and Israel. And you just put out a great video at PragerU, and you were reading my mind when you talked about if you don't understand Israel, then you're lost from the beginning and you're easily seduced and deceived on everything else. And so it's understanding Israel and the West and Jerusalem, but then it's also tethering it to an education that's intentional about ingraining it. And, of course, we're long past that with government schools.